Hello everyone. Welcome to my channel. Please subscribe and keep watching more details. One Chicago 2025 crossover rumors have fans worried about Kim Burgess. Kim Burgess, Marina Squarciati, is more important than ever on Chicago PD. The character was recently promoted to detective, and she has taken a mentorship role with troubled officer Dan Torres, Benjamin Levy Aguilar. She's also due to be married to Adam Ruzick, Patrick John Pfluger. This sense of importance suggests that she will be safe from any close calls in the field or any life-threatening injuries that may come up in the line of duty. Right? Burgess is effectively second in the IU in terms of command, and is filling a confident role for Hank Foyt, Jason Begg, that was left open by Haley Upton, Tracy Spiridakos. Here's the thing. There's chatter online that Burgess may be in serious trouble with regard to the One Chicago crossover event. The character will undoubtedly place a huge role in the three-part event set for 2025, but one fan who claimed to have witnessed production of the crossover theorizes that Kim Burgess will actually find herself in a life-threatening situation. The tweet in question was posted on November 26 and claims that Kim Burgess was seen being taken away in an ambulance during filming. Not Marina Squarciati, but the character of Burgess, in what appeared to be a scripted scene. Saw the Chicago crossover movie being filmed today, the user wrote. Big fire in a building, and also saw my favorite movie star Kim Burgess being carried away in an ambulance. Fans quickly flocked to the tweet to express their confusion/concern over this alleged spoiler. To be clear, there was no photographic evidence provided, merely an eyewitness claim. It remains to be seen whether Burgess will actually end up in an ambulance in the One Chicago crossover, but if it is true, it certainly raises questions about what happens during the three-part event. Does Burgess succumb to injuries via fire? Is she wounded in pursuit of the person who caused the fire? There's also the psychological implications of a serious Burgess injury in 2024. The character was shot and nearly killed in the Chicago PD Season 8 finale, and ultimately wound up in therapy due to the PTSD that resulted. She has had to overcome a lot, but she has not suffered an especially grim injury since then. If Burgess does wind up hospitalized during the One Chicago crossover, it'll be fascinating to see how it impacts her psyche and her involvement in the criminal case that brings One Chicago together. The city of Chicago hummed with its usual chaos, the steady rhythm of lives intertwining between bustling streets, smoky alleyways, and flickering hospital lights. For Detective Kim Burgess, that hum had always been a familiar comfort. But tonight it felt different, quieter, eerier. As she sat in her car overlooking Lake Michigan, the chilly wind carrying the faint scent of impending snow, her gut told her something wasn't right. "Kim, you good?" Sergeant Trudy Platt's voice crackled through her radio. Burgess reached for the mic, hesitating before responding. "Yeah, Platt. Just taking a breather. What's up?" "Bigwig briefing down at Firehouse 51. Something big is brewing, and they want all hands on deck. PD, fire, med. You're on it." The last time Chicago's finest had all converged like this, it had been a whirlwind. A deadly gas leak, arson, and a multi-vehicle pileup all tied together. If it was happening again, the stakes would undoubtedly be high. Kim sighed, her breath clouding up the car window. She pulled her jacket tighter, turned the ignition, and headed toward Firehouse 51. Inside Firehouse 51, the air buzzed with tension. Captain Matt Casey had temporarily returned to help with a high-stakes operation that demanded every ounce of expertise. He stood alongside Kelly Severide, who had his arms crossed, his brow furrowed in concentration. Chief Bowden briefed the room, his booming voice echoing off the firehouse walls. Standing in one corner, Dr. Will Halstead and Dr. Ethan Choi whispered about potential medical implications, while Intelligence's Jay Halstead kept a wary eye on his brother. Burgess slipped in, scanning the room. She noticed Foyt at the back, his usual grim expression fixed as he studied the briefing notes. The only missing piece was Haley Upton, who was reportedly chasing a lead out of state. "Glad you could join us, Burgess," Bowden said, his deep voice cutting through the chatter. "Wouldn't miss it, Chief." "What's the situation?" Casey stepped forward, gesturing toward a map projected onto the wall. "We've got a series of coordinated incidents across the city. Fire suppression systems have been tampered with in multiple buildings, leading to unexplained explosions. At the same time, Chicago Med is being overwhelmed with patients showing signs of poisoning from an unknown substance. And now a CPD informant has gone missing, someone who might know what's behind this. Burgess frowned. Who's the informant? Voight spoke up, his voice gravelly. Darren Sloan. Small-time crook, but he got in too deep with some very dangerous people. He reached out to intelligence last week, claiming he had proof of a larger conspiracy involving city infrastructure sabotage. Then, poof, gone. Kim felt a chill run down her spine. Sloan had been one of her cases years ago. He was a slippery character but always seemed more desperate than dangerous. If he was tangled up in something this big, it was bad news. As the teams split up, Burgess found herself paired with Casey and Dr. Halstead. Their task was to investigate one of the targeted buildings, a high-rise downtown that had recently suffered a mysterious fire. The three worked in sync, Casey assessing structural damage while Burgess checked for signs of foul play. Halstead examined remnants of a substance found in the sprinklers, a faint green residue that gave off a nauseatingly sweet smell. "What do you think?" Burgess asked, crouching beside Halstead as he sealed a sample. "Whatever this is, it's not just flammable, it's toxic. I'll need to run tests back at Med, but I wouldn't be surprised if this is what's poisoning people." Casey called out from across the room. "Found something." Kim and Will hurried over. Casey pointed to a small, partially burned device nestled in the debris. It looked like a timer attached to a container. "A homemade incendiary device," Casey said grimly. "Whoever did this knew exactly how to exploit the building's fire suppression system." Kim felt her phone buzz, she answered, hearing Voight's voice on the other end. "Burgess, new intel just came in. Sloan was spotted near the old steel mill on the south side. You're closest. Take Casey and Halstead with you. I'm sending backup." The steel mill loomed like a ghost against the night sky, its broken windows glowing faintly from the city lights beyond. Burgess parked a safe distance away, her senses on high alert. "Everyone stay sharp," she said, drawing her weapon. Casey carried a flashlight, its beam cutting through the darkness, while Halstead carried a medical bag, just in case. Inside, the air was thick with dust and the faint metallic tang of rust. They moved cautiously, their footsteps echoing in the cavernous space. "Over here," Casey whispered, pointing to a flickering light deeper within the mill. As they approached, they found Sloan slumped against a pillar, clutching his side. His face was pale, his breaths shallow. "Sloan," Burgess called out, holstering her weapon and rushing to his side. "What happened?" Sloan groaned, his voice barely audible. They're planning something bigger. The high-rises were just a test. The real target is the water supply." Burgess exchanged a glance with Halstead, whose face had gone pale. Before they could press Sloan further, a loud crash echoed through the mill. Shadows flickered and the sound of hurried footsteps surrounded them. "Ambush," Casey shouted, stepping in front of Halstead as figures emerged from the darkness, weapons drawn. Burgess fired a warning shot, shouting, "CPD. Drop your weapons." The intruders didn't comply. Chaos erupted as bullets ricocheted off steel beams. Casey tackled one assailant, wrestling him to the ground while Halstead shielded Sloan. Burgess ducked behind a pillar, returning fire with precision. Backup arrived moments later, with Jay Halstead and Voight leading the charge. The firefight was over as quickly as it began, the attackers either subdued or fleeing into the night. Back at Chicago Med, Sloan was stabilized but placed under heavy guard. The sample Halstead collected confirmed Sloan's warning. The substance was a chemical designed to contaminate the city's water supply. In the aftermath, Burgess sat in the waiting room, her adrenaline finally fading. Casey joined her, handing her a coffee. "Close call," he said, sitting beside her. "Too close," Kim replied, staring into the dark liquid. "If Sloan hadn't talked, we might not have stopped them in time." Casey nodded, his expression serious. "But we did. And now, we'll make sure they can't hurt anyone else." As the city's emergency services prepared for what was to come, Kim couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. Chicago had faced countless challenges, but this one felt different. More personal, more dangerous. And in her gut, she knew the fight was far from over.